flying saucers or whatever. Very strange, but a final acceptation from the science or explanation in detail is impossible. The next pictures are the so-called insects from South America. In the Gold Museum in Colombia, there are many artifacts made out of pure gold. You see here one and following others. When we asked the director of the Gold Museum if we could get a meeting with my friend, the museum director, we arrived in Bogota, and we had an appointment the next day. And first of all, we could talk with the director, but finally, when we asked her if she could lend us some of these artifacts, she denied it completely. And when we wanted to see at least the original objects in the showcase in the museum, unfortunately, on this day, the light was broken exactly and only in this showcase. That means they are not really willing to give these artifacts out. But there were some studies on some of those artifacts, and those artifacts have exactly the aerodynamic of modern jet fighters. Two German inventors did several models, exactly the same style like those gold objects, but much bigger. And believe it or not, those so-called insects are even able to make perfect loopings, starting and landings. From which culture those artifacts are, I cannot explain. The explanation of the museum is, I think, a little bit simple, but you can see all those artifacts looks definitely different, like an insect. There are artifacts also from Colombia in a German museum, and also this museum refused to lend us the artifacts for the exhibition. It is quite hard to make all the connections and explanations on all the photos I show you, because I have thousands of photos of different artifacts, but I just want to show you some artifacts, and many of them are somehow connected to each one. There are also many ceramic figurines in South America, some of them 2,000, 2,300 years old. The official explanation is ceremonial objects or morphological objects, but a real explanation is not possible to do. And now I show you one artifact which is over 2,000 years, and the original is in the Museum de las Culturas Aborigines in Cuenca, in Ecuador. If you look at this artifact, it is really very strange. It could be a modern diver or something else. Maybe there is a connection to extraterrestrials, but as I told you at my beginning, I cannot and I will not say it as long as I have no real confidence and guarantee. There are also many, many ceramics in South American museums, which definitely looking very, very strange. And in Quito, in the Museo Weilbauer, it's a museum of the Catholic University in Quito, there is one artifact, and the explanation is very nice, because there is only one simple word which says desconocido, and it shows that they really don't know how to explain how this artifact was done about 2,000 years ago. Then I show you on the next picture one artifact which we got from Adriano Forgione from Italy. Paola Harris did a fantastic research on these objects, and I got the report from Adriano, and the story was that he got those artifacts from a man, Dr. Wolf, in the United States, and the explanation was that this piece was from a UFO. So I was very interested, and I asked Adriano to lend me the piece, and we brought it to the Atomic Institution in Vienna, and they did a very serious research on it, and all what they found out is that this piece must have been under a very, very hot temperature, about 3,300 degree Kelvin, and the material is 99.99% pure silicium, but they could not declare 1.01% of the material. With all the tests they did, they could not explain what material is the 001 point. This is another side of this object. Then I got for my exhibition in Vienna from Mr. Khalil from Egypt. His father was a very famous researcher in Egypt, and Mr. Khalil made a replica of one artifact. You can see here on the photo the exact replica of the original, which is in the National Museum in Cairo. And it's also the same material, a kind of balsa wood, very light, and the explanation in the museum is a bird. But if you see the next drawings, I do not think that the bird would be able to fly if he would have the same constellation of the wings and the feathers. The next one is, I had long time no contact or no interest in crop circles. Today you are very happy because you have one of the most experts on crop circles here as speaker. But what has to do a crop circle with archaeological strange finds? In Germany, on 23rd of July 1991, in Grasdorf, Germany, there appeared a very strange crop circle. You can see the picture here. The size was about 100 meters long and around 40 meters wide. There was one man working as an assistant in an archaeological area very close by. And the information I got about this was that this man had a dream in the night that he should take his metal detector and research on the crop circle. He went there and he found underground the crop circle about 30 centimeters wide, about between 3 and 5 kilos, 3 artifacts, one pure gold, one pure silver, and one pure bronze. And exactly the finding was in 3 of the major points of the crop circle. The man who found those artifacts disappeared with the one made out of pure gold, and the last information I got was that he cut the plate into 2 pieces and he sold 1/2. The silver and the 3rd plate are now in a private collection, and he allowed my friend Jay Goldner, who is also a very great crop circle researcher, to make replicas. And he started and researched more the points on those plates, and if you look the deep point in the plates, they are looking like a kind of star constellation. But how comes that overnight appears a huge crop circle, and exactly underground on the same place they find 3 plates with exactly the same drawing like the crop circle? I mean, this is one of the biggest mysteries, and I think nobody has a really explanation for it. The star constellation on these plates are not similar, are not the same, but looking a little bit similar with a plate found in Germany also a few years ago. But also on this plate, still there is a struggle between some experts. They are saying this plate is original, and some experts are saying this plate is a fake. So what is the reality? If you see the design made out of this crop circle by Jay Goldner, the design is too geometrical exactly, that somebody can do the same thing overnight. And the most strange thing would be if somebody who did this crop circle as a fake, he must be a very rich man to make 3 plates, one of pure gold and one of pure silver, to put them under earth and hoping that somebody finds them someday and makes a big mysterious out of it. The 3 replicas we could present last year in our exhibition Unsolved Mysteries in Korea. After talking many times with J. Goldner, he showed me some crop circles showing kind as like extraterrestrial man, and also some explanations he explained me, but I think Nick Pope can explain those crop circles more exactly than I can do. But he told me that it was an answer from outer space, explaining that they have different DNA, that they are only around 1 meter tall, that they have over 40 billion people, etc. I have no approval if that is true, but I think from the expert from England you can get more detailed information about it. But again, through the archaeological find, I really started to be more and more interested also in the crop circles. And then one day appeared this crop circle, and Jay Goldner explained me that they could find out the writing, what it means, and it was saying, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises, much pain but still time, believe there is good out there, we oppose deception, conduit closing. If that is reality, I have no approval, but experts can tell you more. Then Jay Goldner showed me some pictures about the flower of life they found in very hard granite in the temple of Dendera, and scientists found out that the flower of life is going 1 to 2 centimeters inside the stone, but not carving, but the design is made into the stone. And Jay Goldner explained me that this might have been able only by working with a kind of laser technology. But several thousand years ago, there must have been a really advanced civilization on Earth to be able to do such an object. The next one, I can show you here several photos from all over the world from pyramids. You find the pyramids definitely nearly in every continent. And an Australian researcher, Rex Gilroy, found in Australia a pyramid with Egyptian hieroglyphs. So why you find all over the world pyramids? Was there only one same idea in different times, or was it just by circumstances or whatever? I mean, you really find the pyramids all over the world. In Vienna, I had the possibility to invite Professor Masaaki Kimura, who is the undersea researcher geologist in Japan. They found about 25 meters under the sea level in Yonaguni, which is the southest island in Japan, a huge stone monument. And the research of Professor Kimura made him sure that this was done by human work. He had a long and still has a struggle with his colleagues from Japan, but he has already so many approvals that this monument was done by work with human work. So the next question was, the steps are far too high for normal people, but further on I will show you photos or skeletons or bones from giants, footsteps from giants, even up to the size of 7.6 meters. If those people were giants, we don't know, but Professor Kimura, as we got really friends, and I visited him several times in Japan, he showed me even photos of a huge stadium with steps and with seat rows also in the same area in Yonaguni. I mean, the first monument, if you look at the model on the right side, could be done by nature, but I do not think that the nature is so perfect that the nature can make a stadium with steps and sitting rows. I don't think that this is possible for the nature. Even I respect the nature, and the nature can do a lot, but not so exactly a stadium. Here you have several photos underwater made by Professor Kimura, and in the center of this photo, you can see a kind of face, and Professor Kimura is calling this monument, which is quite huge and big, a kind of sphinx. Then we are again connection to Egypt. What is the reality? Then there are so many legends and myths all over the world. But I think, and sometimes I have approval, that many myths have a huge amount on reality. If you just think about Schliemann, who was searching Troja, he found it because he believed in a myth, in a story. We have the story about Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. There are many, many scientists or researchers telling you many places in the world where this continent was, but on the left side you have one stone which is about this size and over 350 kilo. On this stone you have the world map. I will show you on the next photos two sides. One side you can see, on the right side you can see Italy, Greece, and around the area of Middle East, approximately Israel, Syria, you have a kind of eye inlay. And then you can see Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and India. India on this map is bigger than in our days, but after the last tsunami, the Indian researchers found sunken cities under the sea level. So that means could be a real world map. Not could be. The next picture, you can see that the natural crystal line is passing in the Atlantic, a kind of continent which does not exist today, meaning that could be Atlantis. And then it goes into South America, and where today the city of Guayaquil is, there is another inlay going up to the north, and there is another inlay. And this is exactly the place where we found, not we, Engineer Sotomayor, who was working for a British mining company in Ecuador, in a place called La Mana, was digging for gold, and they found in a kind of tunnel over 350 very strange objects. And all of those objects, they do not have any reality or any connection to any existing South American pre-Columbian culture. And this stone was also there. Again, we go back. When I met Professor Kimura, he explained me that his researches, upon his researches, he thinks, and he soon might get the approval, that from the northeast island of Japan, which is today Sakhalin Island and is Russian territory, far down after Taiwan, there once was a long continent, and he called this continent Mu. If you look on this picture, on the right side, you can see exactly where today Japan and Taiwan is, from the north until far down after Taiwan. There you can see around exactly the continent what he is thinking. He got the approval after his researches. That means if this world map is reality, we have really two continents not existing today as they are, like Japan and Taiwan. It was one long continent. But on the other hand, then that means that this world map must be older than at least 10, 12,000 years. But then the next question is, who was able to do such a perfect world map 10, 12, or even more thousand years? It's a very strange artifact. The same place, they found a pyramid, a really pyramid like the Cheops pyramid or any other famous pyramid. And the strange thing is, the pyramid is about 27 centimeters. It has exactly 13 steps and a gray inlay eye. If you put black light on this pyramid, the gray eye is shining very strange, which you can see on the next picture. It looks exactly like the pyramid on the $1. There are very mystical stories about this pyramid, but the pyramid with the eye is I think, one of the oldest symbols on our earth. But the question is, where comes this pyramid from in Ecuador? The next, here you have the original color, and this is the color when you put black light on the stone. It is really a shining eye, and when I saw it at the owner's house, when he put down the light, I thought, what is he doing now? And he came in with a black light. I really tell you, my hair was a little bit standing up. I was really shocked. And then the most strange thing is, on the bottom of this pyramid is a writing, a so-called unknown writing until our days. There was only one professor for linguistics, Professor Kurt Schildmann in Germany, and he checked several stones with the same writing, which we also found in Ecuador, in Colombia, in United States, in France, in southern Italy, in Malta, in Turkmenistan, and in Australia. All these stones in every country are not recognized by the official science, but concerning Professor Schildmann, it is every time on every stone it is the same writing, and he called this writing pre-Sanskrit because he said it has a little similarity with the famous writing from the Easter Islands and with the famous writing from the Hindus Wali. And he said that this writing is definitely older than Sanskrit, and he called it pre-Sanskrit. Professor Schildmann passed away, 4 years ago, but there is now another Italian professor, Professor Raso. He is also to translate this language. They found over 300 pieces of ceramic and stone artifacts in southern Calabria, and there was one stone one ceramic plate over 1 meter and 50 centimeters wide, and he translated this stone, and the translation was the explanation where there is a small stone circle, which is really a little bit similar with the stone circle of Stonehenge, and the description was also talking about a mastodont, meaning a former elephant, which must be very old, and there is the place where there should be the underground, the cemetery of the Sea Kings. And a friend of mine, I called his name before already, Adriano Forgione, they went there upon the explanation, and they really found the stone circle and the already very destroyed, partly destroyed mastodont. That means if the translation would not be perfect or exactly, he would never have been able to find those two places. And on the pyramid, on the bottom of the Ecuadorian pyramid, you have the inlay of the Orion constellation, and the translation of the letters you can see above the gold inlay concerning Professor Schildmann says, "The Son of the Creator comes." A year after our exhibition in Vienna, in England, appeared a crop circle with a, with a pyramid with the eye and 33 rays. And soon, a few years later, another pyramid appeared as a crop circle. Is there any connection? I don't know. On the next picture, you see 4 artifacts, also from the same place where the pyramid in Ecuador was found. One helmet from a material we did not have yet the chance to check the material. You have 2 stones, and if you look at this picture, you can see on the top of the picture the 2 red eyes, and then if you look further down, you can see the right hand holds the pyramid and the left hand is on top of the pyramid. On the next picture, you see a man sitting maybe on a stone, and he is exactly holding the pyramid like it is shown on the photo before. The right hand is on the ground of the pyramid and the left hand is on top. On top of his head you can see something which looks like a flat helmet, and from the helmet up goes a kind, looks like an antenna, goes up to an object with rays. It doesn't look like the sun. Some people said it looks maybe like a UFO. Nobody knows. And from the eyes of this sitting man, you can see that some rays are going to standing like people, and they are standing like this. And if you look at the next photo, you see a flat helmet, and you can see that in the center of the helmet is missing something. It's broken away. That could be this kind of antenna. So please make your own thinking about those artifacts, and if some of the experts are joining us today, have some idea or some explanation, I would be very happy about it. From the same place, this small stone plate comes. If you look at the plate on the bottom, you have a star constellation, and you have 2 figurines looking up to the sky. This star constellation is an inlay. We think that they used phosphorizing stones. They made a powder out of it, and they made these inlays with something we don't know. But also this star constellation and these inlays and also the 2 eyes of the figurines are shining very bright when you put black light on it. Now everybody would say, few hundred, few thousand years, nobody knew how to do black light. But some shamans told me that when they go into a really deep meditation, they might be able to see things in another color. So that would be one explanation, or the other explanation could be that they were quite able to use a kind of black light in the past, because also, as you know, they found batteries in Iraq which are over 3,000 years, and they still can give some electricity. Here is a British friend of mine, Andrew Collins, made me a drawing of this star constellation. And the next artifact from the same place is one big jadeite stone cup and 12 little cups. The big cup inside is very magnetical, outside nearly not magnetical. I asked several geologists if that is possible. They said no, because if any stone has iron material inside the stone, it must be magnetical from both sides. Even on this big cup, you have the same star constellation as you saw before on the little plate. Also shining in a very bright light if you put black light on it. And the star constellation, Andrew Collins checked it, it looks like a star constellation which existed about 12,000 years ago. So we have to make further researches on it. Here you have the original color of this big stone cup. You see that the inlay is nearly white, but if you put black light on it, it shines very bright. And one star, the left big star, 3 of them are looking like a pyramid. The left one is a little bit red. And the little cups are handmade and have a different size. But if you fill up the 12 little cups and you put the water inside the big cup is completely plain with water. And the numbers you see on the little cups are looking like the Mayan numbers, but they are different. So which civilization made those cups, those artifacts? Here you have a stone, kind of stone helmet, or you can put it on the ground and you can put perfect your head into this granite stone. You have also here some inlays, and some doctors in Vienna, specialists for acupuncture, they told me that these are exactly the energy points which they are using when they are doing the acupuncture. That means acupuncture is famous and came from Chinese history, how this technology would have come to South America. Here you have the top of a cobra head. The cobra never lived in South America. The bottom, the breast shield of the cobra, has 7 points on the left side, 7 points on the right side, and 33 lines on the plate. Also under UV black light, shining very bright. Here you have a stone which had the form of a heart, but on one side, on the right side, it's destroyed a little bit, and the stone changes in the center from brown to black. Really top geologists told me that this comes not usually in the nature. And the strange thing is, you can see, if you look exactly on the black stone, you can see 2 closed eyes, 1 nose, 1 closed mouth, long hair, and a long beard. Many people, when they saw first time this picture, they said it looks like the Shroud of Turin. Then you have the big cup, you have 12 cups. You have the pyramid with the eyes. I mean, there are so many open questions which we do not know how to explain. The next pictures are also ceramic figurines. Some of them are really this size. They were found also in the same area in South America, in Ecuador. For me, Ecuador is one of the really most interesting countries of the world, with so many artifacts which we cannot explain. If you look at those figurines, they are not really looking like pre-Columbian culture, and especially this one and the next following ones. They are sitting in the lotus seat. Their head looks like you can see many Asian Buddha figurines. They have also those points on top of their head. Very strange how those artifacts are coming to South America. Now we are going to Colombia. Here you can see a plate, stone plate. The size is about that size. It's precise round with many, many inlays. When we brought these stones, I found it in the collection of Professor Jaime Gutierrez, and he is the most famous architect and industrial designer in Colombia. He got those pieces around 1970, 1972. When he made a press conference in Colombia, the scientists were attacking him, and the press was writing very stupid things, and from that moment on, he never showed the original pieces outside his home. But finally, when I met him and we got friends, he allowed me to bring 44 very strange artifacts to Vienna. Most of those artifacts were found in close to the area of Bogota and Villa de Leyva. Villa de Leyva is a very interesting archaeological place, and the material, we checked the material in Vienna, that if it is really ludite, in Spanish Professor Gutierrez calls it lidita, is a very, very hard stone. The hardness of this stone is approximately 6. Granite has the hardness point of 7. That means a very hard stone, but the structure of ludite is like leaves. That means the stone lyddite is very hard but very easy to break. And when we had the guarantee that the material of this and the following artifacts, which you will see on the next pictures, are really made out of lyddite, I asked the most famous expert, director in Vienna, now he is retired, to check me those pieces. And he checked the pieces very carefully. And after several hours he told me, this stone plate for me is one of the masterpieces of stone work on this earth. And then he told me, I cannot tell you when they made it, how old it is. I cannot explain you how they made these artifacts, and especially how they made these carvings so precise in this, he calls it a genetical disc. But one thing I can tell you, we are not able to make the same artifacts with our technology today from the same material. It is impossible. That means those artifacts we cannot make today. But for the official Colombian archaeologists, these artifacts are new-made fakes. So, if the worldwide expert on this field says we cannot make them today, they cannot be new-made. And who in Colombia would make such a masterwork for pieces which he cannot sell afterwards? When he is so perfect, he would make replicas of originals, and he could earn a lot of money, but he would not be able to make these artifacts. If you look on the right side, on the left side, the second picture. A few years ago, or I think already over 20 years ago, a Swedish photographer was able to make special photos with a microscope camera inside a lady, showing the human lady's eggs. And this photo, believe me, looks exactly like the picture, the second on the left side. You have the human egg, and you have on the right side the human egg with the spermia inside. On the right side, the second picture, you can see spermias, and we ask many doctors and specialists, what can you see on these pictures? And it was always kind of spermias, kind of human eggs, kind of different fetuses in different phases, but some of them from animals, some looks like human, so it's completely unexplainable. And if you look on the left side, on the right side, the two standing man and female, the expert in Vienna also was saying it's very strange if somebody can make such a fantastic object, why he is presenting man and woman with white skull, eyes wide away. And the philosophy of Professor Gutierrez is that he thinks, but this is his thinking, that this is a demonstration of the evolution from frog to animal to human. But that's his thinking, what it might demonstrate. Here you can see the area of Via de Leyva. Close by, all those strange pieces were found. Via de Leyva is an area where you find up to 8 meters phalluses made out of a very, very hard stone, and this stone is about 60 kilometers far away from the place where they are standing now. So now the question is also for us, how could they bring such huge stone monuments over mountains to that place where they are today? And on the second line of the photos, you can see an area where there were all phalluses, but presented like an astronomical area. But the Spanish conquistadors, they destroyed most of these monuments. The next pieces you can see are out of the same material, made by lyddite. every of these artifacts is from the same material and not able to make today. Here you can see a kind of knife, and on top you see the head of the mother, and you can see in between the head of the baby, and the I don't know in English, the line from mother to the baby is around the neck of the baby. So that shows us like an instrument made by a high civilization or by anybody else, showing a primitive culture how they can use this instrument. Here again you see the backside of mother's head and baby's head with the line around the neck. The next one looks, I asked many gynecologists and doctors, and they said it looks like the baby has problems coming out from the mother, and then they checked this instrument, and you can hold this instrument only on the top. There's an end carving where you can put your this finger inside, and then you can hold this instrument only with your finger tops. That means it would be even safer to help the baby coming out from the mother than today's instruments, because with our today's instruments sometimes the baby's head can be damaged. These are instruments where we think they might have been medical instruments, all from the same material, and they are not bigger than this size, but precise done. If you look at those graphic explanations from Professor Gutierrez, he said every of these instruments, every of these artifacts has the perfect design. And when he presented these artifacts and the design in a university, in a design university in the United States, a young scholar told Professor Gutierrez, this is really the perfect design. So you are the most famous industrial designer in Colombia. I think you are able to do these things, and you did it. And then he was laughing and he said, young man, if I would be able to make this design, I would not be only the most famous industrial designer in Colombia, but all over the world. And here on these photos you can see that each of these instruments has the perfect design. That means when you put it into your fingers, it fits you as just it would have been made just for your fingers. I mean, really instruments, incredible. And the most important thing for us is, and the question where those pieces are coming from, we are not able to make the same artifacts out of the same material. Here also you have precise and perfect design, but the two looks like people have very big eyes. Why did they show such big eyes if they are able to do such a perfect design? This is a big question. In the same area, there are other artifacts, archaeological artifacts, very interesting, with unknown design, with very strange writings, especially also writings which we really found on all continents. This stone is also made out of fluidite, and on one side you have a writing inlay from corals, and on the other side a completely different writing and a very strange designed writing. That means the question is, can this stone be a kind like the stone from Egypt, where they, with this stone, they finally could translate the hieroglyphs? But until now, this writing, both on the other side and on this side, there is nobody who really can translate this writing. The same is left side, right side photo of a small bird with very strange symbols and inlays on both sides. And this is one of the stones also found there in Colombia, which is exactly the same writing which I told you is also on the bottom of the pyramid in Ecuador and on many stones all over the world. question is, did we have a global civilization? But then if we go back to the Bible, there is written, until the building of the Tower of Babel, all humans spoke the same language. Concerning the stones with the inlay, could be. Here you have several photos of so-called the skulls, deformed skulls. But then I show you some detailed photos. This is one original skull which is in the museum in Lima, and you have a model how this person would have looked like. The next photo, again, a deformed skull, but going slightly back, not straight up, but slightly back. The next photo is a very old photo. It is from around 1920. Until this time, and until I think 1957, there was a showcase in Malta, Mediterranean, where you could see long skulls, but not going up, but going to the backside. And if you remember many of the statues of Egyptian pharaohs, they have a skull going backward. But the most interesting thing is that those skulls do not have three skull plates like we do have. They have only one straight line across their skull. Again, a German researcher found this photo, and my friend Adriano Forgione from Italy, he went to Malta with an Italian TV station, and they could get the allowance of the ministry to research in this museum where those skulls are, and after a few hours they found those skulls packed in boxes underground the museum. And here you can see one picture with Adriano on the right side and the curator of the museum. And here you have a normal human skull, and you can see that it is completely different. It has not three bone plates, it has only one connection line across the skull. Now it would be interesting to do age dating on these skulls, to trying to get DNA analysis of these skulls, but as far as I know, it was never done yet. On the following pictures, I show you several deformed skulls, but the question is, are they really all deformed? I do not think so. This is from Mexico. This is another one from Mexico. You can find deformed skulls nearly all over the world, in Africa, in Asia, in many parts of the world. Look at this skull. Do you really think that only through deformation it is able to create that much more on material, on bone material, as you can see on this skull, and it looks like a cone head? This one, the same. On this skull, I had experts from Russia visiting me in Vienna, and they checked those photos, and they said, these skulls are not deformed. But we did not have yet a final approval that those skulls are not deformed in the museums in Peru, these skulls, and it's very close to the area of Nazca, where the famous Nazca lines are. Very strange. But this, the Russian experts and also some Austrian doctors, experts, were really shocked, and they said, look, this is impossible. You can, and they did, deformations, skull deformations with children, but look at this skull. How do you think, if you make a deformation, the skull must take the form like cone head. This skull goes straight up, and on top of this skull you still have hairs. That means it would be very interesting being allowed to do DNA analysis, and especially on the hairs, that would be very easy. But a friend of mine tried to make a DNA analysis on some bones which I brought from Ecuador, from a giant, and he could not find any DNA anymore, and he told me, he's the only archaeological DNA expert in Austria, and he told me, if a bone is older than about 10,000 years, then you can completely forget about DNA. If we would have a teeth, then we might have a chance to open the teeth and find some DNA inside. Look at this skull. I mean, it's impossible to make such large skull and additional bone material through the deformation. This is a picture with many of those skulls. This is a museum in Ica. Ica is also very famous of the Ica stones. There is also a very big controversy. I visited with a TV program, and one time, first with my friends, researchers, and second with a TV program, and we did one of the last interviews with Dr. Cabrera. I met a top Austrian geologist. He spent 3 weeks with Dr. Cabrera about 15 years ago, and he checked all the stones. He told me the problem is that the Ica stones, there are many, many old stones, original stones, but there are some of them are new made, and this is very pity. I think Dr. Cabrera was a very enthusiastic collector, and many collectors, when they do not have anymore any chance to get some new artifacts for their collection, they might start to make new ones just to get a kind of happiness. Dr. Cabrera had many, those stones. The majority of the stones are really old. He said he checked 3 weeks, many of the stones. He said some of them, they have some crystallization inside the ink carving, which cannot be done in 20, 50, 100, 200, 500 years. So the Ica collection, there are real old stones and there are new stones, and that's the only pity. But I always say, look, how many false fake dollars are existing on our world? If you find a fake dollar, can you say immediately all the dollars in the world are fake? It's impossible. Now we have one object, and I hope I can fly with Andreas Kalka very soon to Bolivia to make a documentation about skeletons which are 2.6 meters tall. 2.6 meter skeletons were found already many times all over the world, in United States and other places, in Russia and so on. But these skulls and these skeletons, the skulls are very interesting. Look carefully and slowly to each of the photos. If you see the jaw of this skeleton, of this skull, it's at least 2 or 3 times stronger than our jaw. This is a front view. This is a side view. This skull is very strange, because if you look at the face bone plate, it looks like you have some concrete material and you put one bone plate on top. But if you see on the top of the skull, you can see that there is no bone plate line on top of the skull. That means this is a really so-called cone head. Not deformed, definitely not. Russian experts checked all the photos very carefully, and even Austrian specialists, and they said no deformation. But how this human can survive, because when our babies, or when we are born, we have the fontanella, and the fontanella is very weak, and when we grow up, the bone closes, but we have 3 bone plates. These skeletons have no bone plate. What kind of human was it? So, some people would say immediately, alien. I wouldn't say so. I hope we are able to make a documentation about some of these skeletons, and I will ask for the allowance to take 2 or 3 bone pieces with me, even, if possible, teeth, and then definitely my friend, the archaeological DNA specialist, would make a DNA analysis, and then I would also ask for thermoluminescence and C14 research on these bones, that we can find out what kind of DNA we can find and how old are those skeletons. And very close to this area where the skeletons are, they found hundreds of black stone masks, pan flutes made out of stone. We got through Giancarlo Bonfanti, an Italian researcher, we got 14 pieces for our exhibitions, and we asked a Bolivian pan flute player to play us tones, and I invited 2 music experts, finding out what kind of tone and what kind of hertz, everything those flutes can do. And this professional pan flute player, he can play you with the cheapest pan flute the best melodies you can ever hear. And he needed half an hour sweating, and he couldn't find the right tones out of those stone flutes. And then we checked the holes of the flutes, and then we found out that every 2 holes, tone holes, are connected perfectly together. Now, first of all, it is very hard to explain how you can make by hand so precise tone flutes, pan flutes. But second of all, it's the most difficult explanation how you are able to turn the hole in a stone precisely around to the other hole. I mean, by hand, it is impossible. But who made those flutes? And then, when he really finally got the tones and we made recording, we found out through the music experts that these flutes are producing tones which are going immediately to the brain hertz, to the brain streams. That means there are 2 possibilities. The flutes are for healing or for meditation. Very, very strange tones, and the tone line is not known. I mean, both experts said that there is no similar tone like do, re, mi, fa, si, la, so. It doesn't fit any of the existing tone strings, or how you call it in English, sorry. In German we say Tonleiter. Here you have a picture with drawings of giants. Giants you can find in every history, in every country. Every human have myths and legends about the giants, but also about little people. One day I found a report, soon I have to close, I think, so I have to hurry up. I saw a report on the internet, which is very dangerous, the internet, because sometimes you really find fakes or hoax on it. There was written that in 1964, Ecuadorian padre, Carlos Vaca, found the bones of a 7.6 meter giant in Ecuador. Finally, when I found the place in the south of Ecuador, Padre Carlos Vaca, exactly on the day 1 month before he passed away. I'm very pity for that, because he was a man I really would have liked to meet him. But thanks to God, or circumstances, or however you call it, I was lucky. I say thanks to God, I found his family, and they still had many of the bones, and I could bring bones with me. And I brought 2 originals with me today, and experts and doctors checked the bones, and they said, it's definitely, it looks like human, not animal, not dinosaurs, not anything. It's exactly like human bone, but it's impossible because it's 5 times taller than our bones. One is the part of the heel, and one is the so-called os occipitale, which is under the skull. So, the giants existed, and we know the place where there's still 3 giant skeletons in Ecuador, at the place which is called, in the Aymara language, the Cemetery of the Giants, and I hope we can finance the expedition and excavation. Only then people and the scientists will believe us that such big people existed. Here you have a footstep from South Africa, which is about 120 centimeters, with Professor Hertag, J.J. Hertag, who did research on it. But here we have photos which I got from Professor Muldashev, the most famous eye doctor in Russia and a very, very good researcher on ancient history and ancient artifacts. He presented me these following photos with 3 human footsteps. The official archaeology says that these human footsteps are artificial made by human as a ceremonial thing or whatever. He went there with 5 different experts: mathematics, geology, anthropology, archaeology, 5 experts, and they checked the steps. They put water inside because they said if a giant is stepping into a weak material and he makes a left step forward to go back, he has to put his weight into his heel. Here you can see that the front step only is much deeper at the heel. So finally they took material from this place and checked it in Russia, and it's definitely cement. That means that a really giant human stepped into this weak cement before it was hard. There's another story going on that in Egypt they found a pyramid stone with a hair, human hair inside. Here you have another photo of the one step ahead footstep, and here you can see how big this step was. This giant also was at least over 6 meters. Here you have the photos of the heel bone of the 7.6 meter giant in Ecuador. This is part of the nose bone, also 5 times taller than ours, and this is the os occipitale bone. Here you have 2 photos of giants found in Utah, 2.6 meters. This is a real deformed skull found by Vienna, even close to Austria in the past, they found. And I just shortly, because I forgot the time, sorry, I cannot show you all the photos, but here you have a stone monument which Professor Pittoni, a geologist Italian, found between Guinea-Conakry and Mali. This figurine, this lady, is called by the people living around this area the dame from Mali. It's a lady's half portrait in granite. The size from the top of the head until around here is exactly 140 meters. And the face is definitely not African nature. Some experts made measurements and everything. They said it might be either South American or Asian. And I think it's South American. And the South American history, also Bolivia, I heard that today one very interesting man from Bolivia is here in the audience, and I would appreciate if I would get the chance talking to him. In the same close by area in Sierra Leone, Professor Pittoni found the so-called blue sky stone. There is a legend that Allah was angry with angels. He made them stone, throw them to earth. He put the sky, throw them to earth, and he put the stars, throw them to earth. They find their diamonds. That's what they say were the stars. They found many stones, Professor Pittoni, this size, small size. We made researches, and also the expert on research, Javier Sierra, did the research here in Barcelona, the Universidad. The explanation is very strange. It's made, this stone is made, but they could not find out what kind of color, and 70% of the stone material is oxygen. There is also silicium and other material inside, and they even found iridium, part of iridium which only exists when an impact is on Earth. He found many statues made out of stone in the deepness between 512 up to 50 meters. This figurine you can see on the left side is a statue this small, and Professor Pittoni, as a geologist, he always took organic material from the area of the finding with him. The age should be of the area where it was laying, but that means it could be much older, is about 17,000 years. And when he presented me those artifacts for the exhibition, I brought this small ball, which was inside the figurine, to the university for checking out what kind of material. Next day the professor called me and he said, Mr. Dona, I think somebody made a bad joke on you. I said, why? He said, the material is chromatical steel. Somebody put this ball inside. Chromatical steel was found first time by an Austrian 1903. How this ball could be 17,000 years? Impossible. I called Professor Pittoni. He was laughing. He said, Klaus, I am a geologist. When I find an artifact and it makes a sound, I'm not just breaking the artifact because I would like to know what is inside. He made many, many X-rays from all sides, and then he could see that there was some kind of hole which was closed. It was not visible from outside. And then he asked a specialist from a museum to open him this area, and inside was this ball. 17,000 years, chromatical steel. Here again, in these figurines, you have kind of giants, because you can see this black man is sitting on an elephant, but if he is sitting on an elephant, he must be at least over 5-6 meters. And also strange artifacts like half human, half animals. But the official history or research says the oldest Sierra Leone culture is 3,000 years and they only used wood. But who made stone, artificial stone, thousands of years ago? Who was able to do such perfect statues? And my last photo I show you, in the center is the thinker of Rodin. On the right side you have a thinker from Ecuador, which is older than 2,000 years, and on the left side, on the right side, you have a thinker from Acámbaro in Mexico, which also is another important place with artifacts. So, the only thing what I can say, I do not have the guarantee, or I cannot prove that some of those artifacts are not from our Earth, and I would not say it as long as I don't know it. But please think by yourself about those artifacts, and thank you very much for taking your time.